I'm the one who's relying on the lawyer's judgment, and then the lawyer's the one pushing back on me and telling me yes or no, or did you forget this? And so, I mean, really, the best accountants aren't great people,
Yeah.
and so that you're trying to find this cross of like, who is technically proficient.
There's an entire generation of Americans who no longer care about prestige, titles, work travel, fancy offices, and lunches. Welcome to Mundane Millionaires, a podcast for this generation of small business owners who want to set their ego aside and focus on what matters: family, community, quality of life, and cash flows. In each episode, Eric Pacifici and Kevin Henderson uncover what it takes to get a little money in the bank, control your time, and invest in building great families and lives. Let's get started.
Eric, welcome back, man.
Yeah.
Had a great chat with Mitchell Baldridge today.
Mitch, our guy Mitch from old school. Mitch. No, Mitchell's awesome. What a interesting fellow. He classic mundane millionaire right here. He started his career as a ordinary everyday accountant, realized pretty early on in his career that he is actually an entrepreneur, decided to leave, the classic accounting firm setup, started his own venture before supercharging his career through social media. And so he kind of walks us through that and talk about scaling a service business. And as always, with a lot of our guests, I walk away with this with a lot of takeaways. Kevin, what were your biggest takeaways from Mitch?
A lot of takeaways and 1,000 more questions that I would have loved to go through. Just a great guy. I think the thing that stuck most with me, and probably just because it's personal, right, as we are trying to grow and scale our own businesses, just in talking through his strategy and how he approached growth and things like that, like it becomes more and more clear every day that this is just like entrepreneurship is just like a petri dish of experimentation, and so every time we ask those questions, and Mitchell was no different, you kind of get the nervous chuckle of like, well, I wish I could tell you that I did it right. I did a lot of things wrong, made a lot of missteps. And I think that's important for people to hear, especially from people achieving success, like someone like Mitchell Baldridge and his, businesses and things like that, to hear that, it doesn't all come easy. Like, these entrepreneurs aren't out there hitting home runs at every at bat. There's strikeouts, there's foul balls. Right. And I just, I thought that was really great, sage advice, and important to hear coming from someone who's involved in building a number of really great, by all accounts, very successful businesses.
Well, and he's a lot further along than we are, right? I look at him and I have a tendency to not keep in the front of my mind that, like, you and I have been at our entrepreneurial journey for about 16 months. He's been at his for 10 years, so
a decade.
Yeah. So a decade. And so it's fascinating to kind of see that life cycle and what that's looked like for him. And, him being about the same age as us, a little bit younger than you, a little bit older than me, because as our audience probably is well aware, you're much older than I am, Kevin.
Many years. In fact, he made reference to 25 years left in our careers. And I kind of chuckled and wanted to say, Eric gets me for like 6. Like,
I mean, you're deep into your,
I'm out of
deep into your 40s, especially after your recent mountain climbing.
Deep one whole
we
year.
Didn't know if we were getting you back, Kevin. So every day with you feels like a gift. So on that note, let's kick it over to Mitchell Baldridge and talk about entrepreneurship, tax, and SMB. What do you think?
Absolutely. Enjoy the episode, and we will catch you guys next week.
All right. Mitchell Baldridge. Super excited to have you on the pod, man. You are one of my favorite, if not favorite, accountants in existence. And I'll tell you, you should be honored because it's not a particularly long list. That's an accounting joke.
I was going to ask how long it was, Eric.
Well, my byline is America's CPA. I'm just taking over the title. Like, I'm going to have you trademark that for me, actually. So
let's do it.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, we've got Patrick Dichter at Apple Tree, and then we've got when he's not even a CPA.
I don't know who that guy is. I don't know Brandon Hall. I don't know Patrick. These guys,
Yeah,
come on.
Brandon's on the list.
Let's start a blood feud right here.
Yeah, no, for
But
sure. But Mitchell, you are I love your story, and I really want to hear the story of who you were before social media, what your life looked like, what your career looked like, and how you became Mitchell Baldridge, America's CPA, the Costco hot dog meme
Trademark
guy.
pending.
trademark pending.
Yes. So tell us, back us up to what your career and your life looked like before you got active on social media.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a very kind of ordinary, or somewhat ordinary path to getting here. I went to school for accounting. I left school, worked for a boutique firm in Houston called Gaynor Donnelly DeRoche that got rolled up when the partners retired. And then I went to go work for BDO, and I was doing, corporate tax provisions and corporate tax returns. And so I had this background of serving high net worth folks, and then this background of working on, primarily big corporate billion-dollar public companies. And when I moved to BDO to go, work on the big show, I was about 3 weeks in and realized, hey, this is not for me. I'm not good at this. I'm not built for this. And I worked there for 3.5 years and went to my wife one day and just tapped out and was like, this is lunacy. I had a couple of clients on board that were real estate guys who I knew from college, and I had $40,000 worth of work, and I was going to leave my job and and make a go of it. And so I think I was 28 years old at the time. And so that
At what point in your career was that you moved to BDO? Were you still a pretty young accountant?
yeah. So I mean, I was 24 when I moved there, and I was 28 when I left, and just I had always, or I just have been built to not work for other people my whole life, just in the sense that I'm entrepreneurial by nature. I don't like hierarchy and order, and to be told
Just
where to
close the
go.
loop, Mitchell. How old are you now?
I'm 38, or I'll be
So
38
that was
in
10
a
years. So
week.
10 years ago.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So went out on my own about 10 years ago. And so, got on Twitter 3 years ago. So I had 5 years out on my own of just kind of being young still. I'm still young in my career in the sense that I learn every day, and I continue to grow my knowledge and, grow what we're doing over here. But like, really green, really young, start out in a guest bedroom, start out with card tables. I'm hiring contractors where, I have no capital. I'm just funding all of my growth out of, selling work and
Yeah.
hiring the best people I can. And then before COVID, I went and I studied and I passed the CFP. So I'm a certified financial planner. I set up an RIA, and my big plan is I'm going to build a all-in, boutique accounting and financial advisory, and I'm going to sell, financial services and basically money management to my current set of clients, and scale my practice that way. That, just this time for money, working 60-hour weeks in April is not for me. I want
And
to
how
kind of, yes.
and at this point, how were you building that book of business for those existing clients? Because if you weren't on social yet, was
Sure.
this local advertising? Like what were you doing?
I live in Houston, Texas. I grew up in Houston, Texas my whole life. I've just had the
Sorry
benefit
to
of,
hear that.
yeah. I had the benefit of
Yeah.
just having a network and being, everyone needs an accountant. It's, you do some good work for a few people, you kind of niche down. I was doing a lot of real estate stuff. But then, in the middle of all this, I get on Reddit, and I find this Reddit r sweaty startup, and I find this sweaty startup guy talking about crazy stuff. And this is like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
I email Nick Huber and say, Nick, you seem like an interesting guy. I want to talk to you. And he goes, come on my podcast and talk. We'll talk about your business on my podcast. I was like, I do not want to go on a podcast. I'll pay you to talk to you. I want consulting, And in that call, he gives me some good advice. He tells me to fire somebody. I end up firing. And, he realizes that I'm smarter than his accountant, and we start working together, 3 or 4 months later with Nick and Dan, and work on. So I'm working on Bolt's taxes, and I'm working on Storage Squad's taxes. And in the middle of COVID, I called Nick and just say, "Hey, man, there's a lot of people moving out of New York. In fact, there's so many people moving out of New York, they don't have enough moving trucks to move these people. Have you thought about doing kind of like white glove? We'll drive your stuff from New York to Florida. You're a multi-millionaire. We're going to charge you out the nose to do this." And he says, "We're selling the store, we're selling the storage pickup and delivery business. It's a crap business. We've gone all in on storage. We're on Twitter now. I'm raising capital. It's this amazing platform. There's these amazing people. You got to get on." And so I just say, "Okay, well, I'll call you after October 15th." And literally after October 15th, I start reading what he's doing. He has 6,000 followers. I tweet something. He retweets it. I get 500 followers, day one
This
in
this
30
sounds super
minutes.
familiar. It just wasn't sweaty startup for me. It was this like Yahoo lawyer on Twitter named SMB attorney.
Bingo. So, and
The
so,
pizza
yes,
guy. The pizza
the
guy. Yeah,
pizza
yeah.
Pizza
guy.
guy.
Wait, this is the Silver Tsunami trademark guy?
That's
Yeah.
right. Also the
So,
silver tsunami trademark.
bingo.
Please continue.
So then
Trademark not pending, actually issued.
That's right.
issued. So
Approved.
then, I never had to scream into the void on Twitter for 3 years with nobody listening to me. And frankly, I wouldn't have done it. So I'm grateful. I believe that things that work very quickly. And so I work at things, and when they work really, really quickly, I really focus on them. And when they don't work, I kind of try something else. So I
Well, that
just
was
never
going to
would
be,
have done
I'll
it.
jump in for 1 second because, don't discredit the quality of your content. Also, I know you
No.
had Nick as a
Yeah.
launching pad, but I mean, the stuff that you write, you have a knack for it. And like obviously I joked about your stablecoin Costco hot dog joke that went mega viral, but you've got a lot of really prolific threads on the power of tax benefits to entrepreneurs and things like that. So really incredible content. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'll just sit there. We can just all butter each other's bread for an hour. But I agree in the sense that like I was fortunate that I had this corner of Twitter at my whim for 3 years. Like in some ways, in some ways I still do, where I got to just sit there and week after week after week, like kind of cover all of the topics in this way of like, now I've built the Wikipedia of business taxes on Twitter. So it was very fortuitous timing, and it was a good niche, and it still is. So yeah, I'm grateful for it. And yeah, like a lot of people get the chance, and you do have to do the work. But so then so I start tweeting, and immediately people start DMing me, and I set up a Calendly link, and man, I'm doing 6 informational calls a day, 4 days a week. I'm just talking to 20 people a week, and figured out really, really quickly, hey, I got to scale up, I got to grow up. And I mean, that's 3 years ago, and I'm still working on scaling up. So, and since then I've brought on a partner. We've started a couple of other businesses. We've made a lot of shifts in kind of who we serve and what we do, and we're just getting started. So
I'll follow up on that, Mitchell, because I'm curious, selfishly, but also I'm
yeah,
sure a lot of people are in the same boat listening. As you're making that transition, you're kind of solo or very small team, and are confronted with this opportunity, candidly, to start scaling.
yeah,
Like, how do you think about doing that? How do you balance, a lot of the worries that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have of like, is now the right time? Am I going to scale too fast? And 3 months from now, I'm going to have to lay people off because I moved too quickly. Like, what was your approach as you saw this sort of influx of deal flow and things like that to make sure that you manage that growth and scale in a, kind of healthy and way that benefits your business, so you don't find yourself having to claw things back?
sure. I've done it wrong. I know, and everyone, or it's impossible to really get it
Yeah.
right because you have to perfectly meet demand. And I didn't do that. So I had options. I mean, I could have immediately when I went out on my own and was successful as an accountant, accounting firms came and said, "Oh, we want to hire you as a director." And then, "Oh, we want to hire you as a partner." And then, "Oh, we want to, and I had still that opportunity of like, I
Sure.
can roll this up into another firm. But the good news is no accountants even like understood what was happening or the opportunity set. I didn't either. And I just continued to try to hire people and grow up. And look, like legal, accounting is just, this isn't SaaS, this
Right.
isn't just something that you right click and
Yep.
copy and paste and you've spun up a whole new instance of something that's going to work for somebody. This is ultimately when I say yes to people, I have to understand what their problems are, who their family is, what their businesses are, how their businesses operate, what their, when their tax returns are due. Am I going to get extensions filed? Like this is a process and the tax code is pretty complex, it turns out. I learn more and more every
I've heard.
day how complex it is. So, I just had all these meetings and sort of fumble, like would add people on, but didn't. I think about it as this problem of like, I have I think almost 80,000 followers now at the top of the funnel. And then I have like 150 client families at the bottom of the funnel. So at a certain point, I said, "Well, I do wanna scale this business. I still wanna scale an RIA." Like, that vision hasn't left of just this great boutique practice for business owners and real estate pros.
Yep.
But, really when I turned the corner was about 18 months ago when I met Roger Ledbetter, my partner now, who, we partnered up at the beginning of this year. And I'd known Roger we both worked at the first firm I ever worked at, Gaynor Donnelly, together. And he had left Baker Tilly. He was the head of the Houston kind of like construction partnerships tax practice there. He was a former auditor. He's whip smart, and he is hopefully he's the Kevin to my Eric. You know what I mean? He's just the guy. He's
Ah,
the
he helps you
integrator.
turn your computer on in the morning. Is that
Exactly. So yes, he helps me. He points me in the right direction, and hopefully lets me just keep shooting. But so that has been how I've worked to try to scale the core business. But then even immediately, Rogers completely inundated with client work. But we've
Right.
finally had this successful formula of we've been able to hire managers and we've been able to scale a team and like you guys, we've been able to utilize some offshore talent. But
Yep.
then really I thought, okay, well, I have these 80,000 people. I need to have a newsletter. I need to do a course. And then, like, you guys have had all these same kind of issues. And to your point, or the way you guys approach this, like, I got about halfway through a course that I was going to charge for. And I was like, I don't want to sell a course. It's dumb to charge for a course because it just limits the reach of what I could do, of who I could help. The course is not to make money. The course is to just go help people and grow the brand value and grow kind of what we do. So really then setting up the cost seg business, which we can talk more about, and building over the past couple of years better bookkeeping are these two kind of lower ticket, lower market, more scalable businesses that
Yeah.
I think are the kind of bigger opportunity. Is how do I build more scalable practices that can reach more people that don't take my time or have the same amount of kind of inputs
well?
So
into them.
Mitchell, let's back up for just one second because I
Yeah,
am curious. How big is Baldridge Financial? And then you've got other businesses as well. Give us just the lay
sure.
of the land of everything you're working on.
Yeah. So Baldridge Financial today has 15 people and again, we have probably 150, 160 client families. So we have a small practice. We prefer to work on bigger projects. We work with real estate syndicators and small business owners, similar to like who you're working with. And yeah, our goal is to really get inside of a client and work with the partners and work with all of the businesses and work with the controller or even do some of the bookkeeping on our own and just kind of surround people with service and have less clients that we play a bigger role in. I mean, CostSeg is this other business I own. Me and Nick Huber partnered in a business called RE CostSeg. We started it up about probably 18 months ago, and that has been a Twitter experiment. My wife, Melanie, runs that business, and
Oh, wow.
it's probably at 25 or 30 people with onshore and offshore talent. And I mean, I think Nick posted last week, like we crossed 2 million in sales this year so far, and that's growing and growing. So that's been a huge opportunity. And then Better Bookkeeping is another business that I have a technical partner with, and we've literally like built a bookkeeping platform with, Plaid is on the front end, a big SQL database is on the back end, and we've built all the middle of the reporting and the accounting and the rules. And we work with really like either small startups that have raised seed or Series A funding, and we're helping them to, do all their accounting on the back end and file their taxes, or we work with kind of these solopreneur S corp type lawyer, doctor, sales guy, broker, and we help them kind of set all that up, do all the accounting, do all the tax planning, and ultimately file their taxes. And so that to me is kind of how I broke these problems apart and decided to kind of solve them one by one.
So 3 businesses overall, and your day-to-day looks like what right now?
So yeah, my day to day is, Roger is the managing partner of Baldridge. Melanie runs CostSeg, and Better Bookkeeping. We have an operator who runs a lot of the day to day of that, and I sit there and just kind of support everybody however I can, and I tweet on Twitter, and I'm ultimately a sales and marketing guy, and I'm a process guy, I'm the visionary of this whole thing. So I sit here and think up ideas and give people problems that they wish I didn't. But so my day, but then I get into like we had a client fly in today, and I spent 2 hours this morning in a client meeting with Roger and one of our managers and a client. I'm not the glue holding that meeting together necessarily, and so what I'm trying to do is get manager level people in every meeting that I'm in, and I do kind of like executive client management and new business development and just general kind of planning or ideating or strategy. So I don't have 15 meetings a week like our friend Michael Girdley, but I have 3 solid meetings a week of just trying to keep the people running these businesses on track and keep answering questions and just keep trying to move the ball down the field.
What was the biggest turning point? Describe the quality of your career, the trajectory pre-social. I assume the answer is social media.
Sure.
So tell me if I'm wrong on that, but
Yeah.
describe the trajectory pre versus post and what you've been able to do going from accountant who is doing people's taxes because people need tax work to now being a visionary who oversees 3 businesses.
Yeah.
So like the idea of, and we all know this, and like Eric, you just were on the Fort podcast and did a great job. And the idea of me trying to email everybody, like when I left my job at BDO, I emailed 250 people, blind copied and just said, hey, here's the deal. I'm leaving. I'm out on my own. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm up to. And that got me business for 3 years. And then all of my clients would refer me to other clients, and that got me another layer of business. But the idea of at scale, bringing novel information to people that immediately helps save them money and provide value and demonstrate that I kind of know what I'm talking about, hopefully, and that I'm thinking in a different perspective than most people offering this service is attractive. And so that brings inbound in a way that just I never thought I had trouble selling. Frankly, I've always just had a good network and tried to do good work and tried to be a good person. But like this just was a next level of like, again, just having this open Calendly link that I'm providing to a bunch of people, and that gets filled up. And then yeah, I remember at Capital Camp 3 years ago, Bill D'Alessandro told me, he's like, "Look, you need to reposition the way you're operating your business because you're not going to be able to scale the way you are. Like, you need to position higher. You need to build more, guardrails into how people or who you can work with and how people can access you." And that was frankly really good advice because he was right. I just didn't understand I just didn't have a big enough team to service as many clients as I thought I could. So we've continually, like, before I got on Twitter, I had 400 client families and a fifth of the revenue I have today. And today I have 150 clients and I've 5x my revenue. And like that will only, or, I'm not going to get to one client that pays me
Right.
$20 million a year. I don't want to do that necessarily, but that has helped me scale this business. And then just kind of from there, this idea of like cost seg coming in and that being this perfect kind of like creator product fit of all I've done for 3 years is talk about deferring taxes. And then I like create the product that allows, to defer taxes is the next level of like, we have happy cost seg customers that me and Nick and Melanie route into that business that never talk to us. So that's that's just a new level of leverage and scale. And so the kind of next layer we're doing is inside of Baldridge really tripling down on real estate syndicators as a client set and kind of scaling up to meet demand there. I think that's the next frontier.
And maybe that goes hand in hand with what I was about to ask, like, because that's pretty stark to me that you effectively cut your client base, if I heard the numbers correctly, about into a third while 5xing your revenue. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to ask you to like give away the secret sauce
Sure.
here or whatever, but like what was it moving up market? So each client is just bigger ticket. Like how did you make such a drastic cut while 5xing your revenue? Like what led to that?
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately this idea of like, there's niches in the riches, right? And so if you all, SMB Law Group serves small and medium-sized business owners that are primarily buying businesses, right? Is that fair to say? But if I could also come to you and go, so if I said, Kevin, hey, I'm about to like move office spaces. Will you kind of read this lease agreement? You would probably be like, what would you say to that? Or is that even something? Do you take that work, or do you just
I would say
no?
Kevin would be happy to read your lease agreement.
That's exactly what Eric would say. My partner Kevin would love to review that lease.
Yep.
It's tough because this is such a relationship based business, right? If it was a random inbound from a Twitter stranger, apologies to all you Twitter strangers listening to this, I've gotten to the point where I would say, no, that's just too far off market. If it was Mitchell Baldridge, like I'd absolutely review the lease, right? From a relationship perspective, which is maybe the right play, maybe not the right play. I don't know. I'm curious what you would.
Well, I want to see where you're going with this.
Let's say you say, Mitchell Baldridge, yes, I'll read your lease agreement, but you're so busy doing $40,000 ticket business closings that have these tight deadlines that you leave my lease agreement in your inbox for 3 weeks. And then I'm just like, now I wouldn't pay Kevin and Eric to help me buy a business because the last time I gave them this small job, they gave me shit service. And so it's like that is the mindset of how we just have tried to kind of like really focus on what we do is when we get outside of our window, I do a bad job because I can just only maintain so many relationships. So I thought, hey, I'm keeping this grandma's tax return that I've done for the last 5 years on my books because I owe it to her because I promised I'd be her accountant forever. And then she's the one on October 15th going like, "Hey, you asshole." Like, what,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you? Why did we extend this? And why is it October? And why have you not prioritized my return? And I'm
Mitchell,
like,
please
yeah.
tell me this is not a real
Oh,
example,
this is
right? You
this
didn't.
is 100. This is this week's mail. So you know what I mean? And so the more
Grandma, if you're listening, I'm really
yeah,
sorry.
sorry, my own Mimi. Yeah, no, but so, yeah, the more concentrated and focused I get, we run this flywheel of like, we do better work, we provide better service, we gain more knowledge, and then we get to utilize our knowledge and process our knowledge so that we do it even better and better. And then eh, the great clients who we have that are right in our kind of like service window refer their friends who are, other great clients who, and the whole thing does better and better as opposed to, so I had 400 clients and I had a bunch of $800 tax returns and I just was tapped out from a client relationship standpoint. And I was the guy who had to manage them. And when I would try to give them to my manager and they would deliver bad news, the client would call me and then I would try to fix it. And it just perpetuated this cycle that really wasn't working. And so we took a big chunk of revenue and we sold it and we took another chunk of revenue and just kind of referred it out. And then we took another, group of people and just said, hey, we just flat out can't serve you anymore. We're sorry. And it was uncomfortable and it sucked, but like, it's something I'll just continue to, when I kind of shifted my mindset into like, oh, the better work I do for people who are really a fit for me, the easier my life gets. And so,
Right.
and the more money I make and the kind of less, I always talk about like when I have to go and do like a magic show because
Do
we're
you
like
do do
underserving the
you do
client.
magic? You do magic?
Something like that. When the client's not a fit and I have to be the one to take the product and then transmit it to the client
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
provide the service to cover that service gap, it's really not good for me and it's not good for this business. So
Well,
that's
it
how I've
is.
thought about it.
I love the expression dilution of focus, dilution of results. Dilution of
Yeah.
focus, dilution of results, because you're right. The more you're trying to be everything to everybody, the less you are anything to anybody. And it's an entrepreneurial's dilemma. We are,
Yeah.
our firm, as an example, is only really 14 months old, 15 months old. We're still relatively young. And I think credit to our friend Reg Zeller, who talks all the time about how challenging those first 18 months are. That is
Yeah.
true. And I hope that it's just 18 months. I don't know that yet, but the first period has been particularly challenging. And there's so many things that you talked about that resonated with me as a service provider. But, I think that focusing on our craft and being really good at what we do is really important to delivering high quality
Yeah.
service.
So,
But I wonder how you were able to grow a business, and eventually it sounds like you've exited sort of the day-to-day in a sense. You're visionary and you're kind of executive chairman is how you characterize it. When a lot of people that are coming to Baldridge Financial, it's Baldridge Financial,
yeah.
and those first 340 email clients that came to you, like they were coming for you.
Yep.
And now they come to you and they fill out the website and all that, and they're not getting you. How did you manage that transition out of the actual day-to-day?
The way that you kind of stop the bleeding or the way that you fix it on the front end is, and I'm still not perfect about this by any means, but I am at cost seg and at better bookkeeping is I don't get on sales calls. So then if I can exit the sales cycle no one has an expectation that I'm going to be a part of the customer service cycle or the delivery cycle. I'm out of sales. I am, strategist, and I help set the process and I help build the engine. But you didn't think that, you don't think that the ghost of Henry Ford is changing your oil when you go to the Ford dealership. So to the extent that I can separate myself in the sales cycle, that's better. So the legacy customers then are the hangover of people that we've served for a long time that I've been involved with. And that's really been a matter of hiring people that are frankly better than me at delivering the product, or better than, and just here's the reality. I'm not doing your tax return. Sabrina's doing your tax return. And so here's Sabrina. You can call me anytime, but you would do better to call Sabrina because Sabrina's in the mix of it. And if you want, and then it's just a matter of having these managers or associates build trust with the client. And it's hard because whenever anything goes wrong or anything goes out of bounds of expectation, not even wrong, whenever a client owes money to the IRS that they don't want to pay, they get to come back and go, wait, let's all huddle together. And then it's been, one thing we've scaled a lot is Loom, and using Loom and giving people a video, not that I'm on, but that a manager puts together this video of here is your tax return. Here are the numbers. Here are the nuts. Here are the bolts. Here is why you owe money. Cause then it becomes much more of a math problem than a personal grievance. And so, there's been some things that we've tried that have worked, but to answer your question, Eric, it's difficult. It's a process, and it can take years. Cause you never want to go oh, well, let's just let this customer go and start over with a new one, especially if it's good work. I mean, revenue's valuable, and and customers are valuable. And these are people who are my friends and my family and people in Houston who I know. So that's not the plan to just turn over the entire client base, but it is, how do I scale this relationship a little bit better? And it's really just hiring really, really good people and instilling trust in them with the client, and providing better service than they used to get. And then no one's mad. So
yeah, we have the reverse problem in our business where people get me and they go, why didn't I get Kevin? Where's Kevin? Is Kevin going to be on this call?
We have that with
I
Roger.
wish that were true.
Yeah. No,
I was hoping for an easier answer though, Mitchell, but I think you're right. And it's a little bit easier with those arm's length, just cold DMs or whatever to put into the sales funnel. It's a little bit different when you've had that 2-year relationship, hanging out at conferences, good friendship, to be able to be yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your deal. I'm going to put you in the sales funnel with this other team. And it's kind of balancing those personal relationships with the need, candidly, to scale, just because we cannot be on every deal.
Especially if you
as much
use
as
the
Eric
expression
tries.
sales funnel. People love being placed inside of a sales funnel.
Welcome to my sales. But look, I'm always the process guy. I always think that you can develop some process that's going to fix the world. And Roger, my partner, is the people guy. He's look, we just, we're both wrong and we're both right. But the real thing is, I've seen it in front of my eyes with CostSeg, but the best part about CostSeg is it's a much more kind of simple problem than I'm trying to buy a business or get all of my taxes done for me and my grandma and my trust and my grandson and of here, have my whole life and take it from me. But to the extent that we've been working on kind of system solutions, of just what do we try? This was another Bill D'Alessandro. I told Bill, every time I talk to you, you give me some great nugget of advice. So keep doing this. But he gave me this, he just raised his hand. I was in the middle of this talk at Capital Camp and he goes, what's the menu? what is even on the menu? What can we do? And that sent my wheels spinning. And so we wrote down, hey, these are the 34 like playbook implementation items that we do with clients. And this is how you spot it. And this is how you implement it. And this is how you review it. And this is how you value it. And this is how you price it. And this is how you deliver it. And like, you can realistically do that with business acquisitions. I mean, there's only so many kind of like, I know there's the left field crazy stuff, but it's just, is this a stock purchase or is it an asset purchase? If it's a stock purchase, what are we doing? What are the warranties? What are the reps? What are the this? What are the that? And to the extent that you can almost like make the business simple enough on the front end that somebody who's not you can do it, and then you can review it, then that becomes a sales tool, and it becomes a preparation tool, and it becomes a review tool, and it becomes a pricing tool and a delivery tool. So everything I think about is in this kind of like matrix sense of just like, how do we dummy proof? How do we turn this into a Jiffy Lube? And like,
Well, I see it differently. I think our transactions are highly bespoke and need to be handled by the highest degree of professionalism every time different. So don't tell anybody differently here, Mitchell. Thank you.
I agree, but that's a tough business to scale, you know?
Service. I mean, we've had.
You better keep hiring great lawyers, you know?
Yeah, no, because the traditional law firm. I mean, we've talked about this a few times, but you know, it's not a good business. They go wide and flat, and it's not saleable. There's no enterprise value. It's not a good scalable business, and so we have an open question as to whether or not ours is even scalable at all. We're going to try, but we'll see.
How do you go write the book about business? Like, how do you go write the book about buying a $10 million business and provide all of these nuggets of value for the clients and give the person the exact path of how to do it and what to look for and where the bogeys lie and kind of where every problem that people value simplicity, and people don't want to think that it's wizardry. Because if it is, then it's a big problem because it's not simple enough for them to understand it. And how are you ever going to repeat the process, or how are you ever going to continue to scale the business? So but tax is the same problem where, look, I'm thinking of this big idea. It's the wheels aren't quite to the ground, but we're doing this. This is our off-season project, is building these game plans for our clients and building this kind of sales process out and this onboarding process out. So, you know,
it'd be nice if the legal M&A world had an off season like tax, because we have a long list of things to do, and it's always tough to find the time to focus on those things. But yeah, because we struggle with all the same things. To Eric's point, I mean, traditional law firms are they're co-ops of miniature businesses run by partners, right? It's different when you try and scale as an enterprise, and without those types of systems, processes, improved client experience, and things like that. It's just awesome.
Well, and guys, name a service business that's scalable without recurring revenue. Right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between your business, Mitchell, and ours, where we have some reoccurring revenue, but we have absolutely no recurring revenue. And
that's true.
You know, is it conceivable to develop those revenue streams? It's possible. I mean, there are certain threads and pushes within our profession, but you
could build the big, we're going to help you buy the SMB, and then you can funnel them into now where you're retainer lawyer of, we're going to help you review loan docs, and we're going to help you review leases and contracts. And I mean, but then you've just built the same problem that everyone else has built. So I mean, look, I think what y'all are doing is smart in the sense of focusing, niching down into one kind of section of one area is your best shot of creating any kind of process and any kind of scale. But like, we look at Ari Koseg as like, one, it's a good cash flow business, so we'd never want to sell it. And two, I don't think we could, because there's a regulatory overhang of bonus depreciation stepping down and Congress making one decision that blows up the whole business. You're not going to blow up buy side small
M&A.
business legal M&A. Like, I don't think you can, but you could blow up.
You want to be watching the draft legislation, and you got about a 6-month clock to get that business sold, Mitchell. So
just hold my nose, put it on biz buy sell, or like
people do that all the time. Big regulatory changes come in, they get out, and they don't have any obligation to necessarily disclose it. It's certainly not. Yeah.
I have this conversation all the time with clients that call about QSBS, right? And it's like, okay, you're signing yourself up to a long-term clock, and you're one session of Congress away from blowing this entire thing up. Not to say it's a bad strategy for everyone, but that regulatory risk is real, right?
5 years is a while. And I guess QSBS has the entire venture world, hopefully, kind of like pinning that, keeping Congress. That's a pretty big lobbying arm, but
it's a strong lobby.
Yeah. So it's tricky out there. So
they got close enough. It made a lot of people nervous.
They got close in Build Back Better. And, and that was was that a Democrat controlled Congress entirely? Was it?
I mean, Build Back Better was pretty, I don't remember how
did we do? How did that go, by the way, guys? How'd the building process go?
I felt like we've built back better.
Is it better?
Right?
We're so back.
Is it better? Are we back? We're back, baby. It's better.
This is not a political show. Next topic, Eric.
No, I'm just having fun with the name of the legislation.
I'm just messing.
Bitcoin up today. You don't want to give the time away, but that's all we're worried about, is just how are our
Bitcoin is up.
As soon as my NFTs recover, I'm retiring.
That's it. So tell me, or like, not to sit here and interview, but y'all have grown this firm pretty big, pretty quick. What has been your biggest kind of attribute to growth? Is finding the right people who come on board and the right. How do y'all manage that growth of scaling up people and scaling up kind of business at the same time?
There's a lot of assumptions built into that question about how do we manage. Eric?
Yeah, fair enough.
What's the Michael Scott from The Office, where he wrote that fictional book called Somehow I Manage? That would be the title. That would be the title of Kevin and I's management book, if there was one.
If any of our staff are listening to this is all a joke.
Yes, everything's under control. Don't worry.
That's right.
I mean, we have a lot of things at play, and it would take a long time to fully answer that question, because it's evolved tremendously from Kevin and I and Sam, but Kevin and I doing the work, to then bringing in some really impressive contractors, then bringing in some really impressive partners, adding a really, overqualified chief of staff, if he's listening, get back to work. And so we've built a really high quality organization of A players. And to Nick Huber's credit, I think he's the one who recently said, like, you cannot scale off of nothing but A players. And we're kind of at that threshold where it's like, okay, our model, we cannot continue to add people into our model, nor do I necessarily think we need more bodies. And so I don't know that I have a good answer for your question. I think that it's conceivable that we've scaled this business. We may look back 5 years from now and go, that was as large as that business was ever going to be. And I
think of y'all as like almost like Scribe Media, or like you're like a ghostwriting agency or something, where it's like it just requires talented people, and you can't just you're not gonna bullshit your way through this thing, I
mean, the reason we exist is for exactly that reason, Mitchell. Is that this sector that we play in requires A players to do this work, and it historically hasn't been. It either hasn't been serviced by A players, or they've priced themselves above the market, right? And so, I mean, the whole reason we did this was for that very reason. It requires that level of kind of expertise and skill to an extent. And so it's, it's tough to build a strategy to service a sector that's much more cost conscious than
Sure.
the M&A sector generally, but that is arguably putting more on the line than anything, lower middle market and above, where it's other people's money and institutional money and the moral hazard and all the other things we can
Yeah.
get into. I mean, these are husbands
People,
and wives on $150,000 they've scraped together over 15 years, taking a personal guarantee on a $5 million loan. I mean, the stakes are just like astronomical.
Massive. And
So
the
that,
levers
I mean,
that we
that
can
puts,
build too. I mean,
yeah.
the value proposition, Kevin, it has to be there. It's conditioning a market and educating on value. And once you do that, you see the wheels immediately start to spin. We run into a lot of people that say, hey, I just want a lawyer who's going to give me a form. Just give me I want to give you a couple $1,000 and give me a form. Well, or our brokers that say, hey, we just use our standard form. Well, we can put you in a position where you'll have multi-million-dollar contractual protections post-closing that will be the only thing to come save you if this blows up, if you allow us to do our job. And, that's not going to be, it's not inexpensive to bring high quality people into a new space. It's also not terribly expensive. You can go out and find lawyers that are ridiculously more expensive than we are.
Yeah.
So we're a completely new animal. We're positioned between very low cost, terrible lawyers and very high cost, annoying lawyers. And so it just takes time. It's brain damage to kind of educate and scale.
Yeah, well, so you're either, if you can't scale people, if you can't scale A players, you have to scale then processes and systems below. So everyone needs their own VA and everyone needs their own paralegal or whatever that is. And then you probably have to push costs, and then you have to find a bottom, or this is like how we've thought about this with CostEgg. And then you have to find some kind of form systematized product that you could feel good enough about, where you're just like, look, at least this isn't the broker's form. At least it's our form. Like at least this is
that's not
our
hard to
methods.
improve on.
Exactly.
In
but
most cases, but
yeah,
no, I think you're exactly right. Like if you pushed me on what do we look like, 2 years from now at the end of 2025, I doubt we've added that many more, if any more, kind of A player lawyers. I think we've built a team of, like you're saying, overseas talent, paralegals, building out a broader system with lower cost human capital and systematizing a little bit better, where we can have more hands in the fire to deploy that expertise where it's needed without the distraction of like, I'm preparing signature pages at 11 o'clock the night before closing, which is not the, highest best use. So I think that's where this scales, how large it scales, to Eric's point. Like, I don't know. That's tough. That remains to be seen.
Yeah. My prediction though, is that it will be a runaway success and that we will do billions of dollars of M&A, like akin to like Live Oak or one of these large financial institutions in the SBA lending space. But that's a prediction. We'll see. But it's been a fun ride for sure. We have a passion problem in a sense. Like I love our clients. I'm obsessed with what they're trying to do. I worry deeply about them. They've got kids that look like my kids. They've got spouses counting on them to get it right. Like it's important, man. And so as we scale, and I see the same thing in our employees as well. And it's the human elements of that like make the firm tick in a sense, that passion, that heartbeat. But it's also the part that makes scaling fucking hard, because I don't want to take on clients that I can't help. I don't want to bring on lawyers that I can't support. And so we've had business coaches and people in the past that are like, go hire 3 more lawyers tomorrow. And I'm like, I can't do it, right? Because if I go, I cannot just bring on bodies without 1,000% certainty that I'm going to be able to do right by them. And that slows you down, but it also provides some backbone and some heartbeat behind it. So I don't know.
I think about this all the time, and like you guys are young and I'm young, and like we have 25 years ahead of us. So it's like, why? Yeah, I went to this conference with Chris Powers, and somebody was talking about essentially hitting the top of your arc, but when you get to the top of your arc, kind of like no one's there with you. You know what?
Right.
And like if you could just slow down today and go a little bit slower and be essentially guaranteed the same success or more, it's just going to take a little bit longer. Because I'm always the driver. I'm always going like, "Hey, we got to go. We got to go. We got to hire. We got to hire."
Right.
And Roger's such a help for me. He said one time, and this just sticks with me. He's like, "Mitchell, there's a temporal component for this whole thing. Like, it's just going to take time. Like,
Right.
you don't get to bake a cake in 15 seconds because you turn the temperature up to 2000. You know what I mean? You have to bake it for 20 minutes at 350 or whatever.
Oh,
So
that's a great analogy. I love
yeah,
it.
I just made that one up. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's
Man,
man, Mitchell, that's
I'm on a roll.
it's going on a
Yeah,
Hallmark card.
I think a lot too about what John Mahoney said, Kevin, about tempo within the Marine Corps and how sometimes
Yeah.
you sprint and sometimes you don't. And I think that's true within business. And obviously we're learning as we work our way through entrepreneurship here, but I don't think that we can always be sprinting. There's got to be periods where we slow down a little bit and kind of perfect the process. And we had a period recently where I think we had gotten a little bit out over our skis, and I think we've corrected that now. And I think the quality is extremely high at present. And we've seen a surge in our, everything for us is up and to the right. So to your point, like why push too hard?
You have the same, like you have the cost seg tailwinds of your, like cost seg. I won't speak for you, but cost seg is just this like fly on the ass of real estate in the sense that it's just like this really tiny business that can continue to compound and compound and compound. It's way smaller than any of our competitors, and it's this growing market in the sense of like small business law done right is a growing market because people don't even know it exists. And then you get to go out and go, hey, here's what that looks like. And here's a way that you can help yourself. Even if you don't use us, think about this, think about this, think about this. Here's the closing checklist for the SMB acquisition. Whether you're using, the broker's template or the guy down the street, read this before you buy. And then people just want to use you because you're the only one talking about that. And so we've done the same thing with CostSeg, where they estimate there's a 3% market penetration into that business, that like people who could, 3% do it. And so, you're just like, what? It's an education business. It's not anything else.
Wow. That's interesting. That's project-based work too, right, Mitchell?
Yeah. That's same thing. Reoccurring, but not recurring. Nothing recurring. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that provides an interesting segue before we run out of time, because I want to pull on that thread a little bit and pivot a little more to kind of like, let's talk about practice and advice and things like that. And the first place I want to go to your point there, not to make this an extended sales pitch, like we get asked all the time, even just taking our own law firm out of it, like, how do you know, if you're not a lawyer, how do you know if the lawyer you're talking to is a good lawyer that you should hire? And I presume you struggle with the same, like, how do you answer these for clients that are like, okay, well, how do I know that Mitchell Baldridge is a good tax accountant, or the guy that my brother-in-law referred me to in Franklin, Tennessee, or whatever? What do you say to people? What are you looking for when people are interviewing accountants to try and determine, is this the right accountant for me? Are they competent? Can they actually do what I need them to do in my business? And let's maybe use this as a stepping stone to talk a little bit more from the trenches.
It's a complex problem in the sense that, I'm the end user. I'm not even going to read the legal doc that you prepare for me. Hopefully I'm going to have to trust you that you're doing it, because even if I read it, it's in Greek, or, it's in this kind of like common law.
There's only so much you're going to learn in a 3-month deal process.
With that, I posted a tweet yesterday taken up for Dave Ramsey, and the much maligned Dave Ramsey, but he always says trying to find a advisor with the heart of a teacher, and look, I'm talking my own book because I feel like that's who I am. But like, if I don't have a lawyer who can just explain to me what is in the documents and I can go, hey, I think I want this, and I think I want a non-compete, non-disclosure, non-disparagement. I want there to be some provision where I can file a temporary restraining order, and then they go, no, you don't want that because of this, that, and the other. And I don't know anything about. I just learned that word, temporary restraining order. So I'm the one who's relying on the lawyer's judgment, and then the lawyer's the one pushing back on me and telling me yes or no, or did you forget this? And so, I mean, really, the best accountants aren't great people,
Yeah.
and so you're trying to find this cross of like, who is technically proficient, who cares about me, who's a good enough business person to understand that we're trying to kind of solve for two problems. One, we want to get it right, and two, we want to understand and plan and go forward so that we continue to get it right,
Right.
and so that I don't have some kind of bogey that pops up because I didn't know what was going to happen, either from a risk perspective or from just a tax payment perspective or whatever. So when I tell people who are shopping for accountants, I always say, hey, tell your accountant, let's schedule a 2-hour meeting and bring all your stuff and tell them to block out the day and to charge you and bring in everything and go over everything and explain everything and walk through everything and make a plan and start to think about going forward and what strategies could take place, and then schedule the next meeting while they're there and set the agenda for the next meeting. And it's just like, certain accountants just can't do that, or certain business models just can't handle that. And so if I were really serious about my accounting, that's something I would do.
What do you think of Nick Huber?
What I mean, I love Nick Huber. I've nothing but good things to say about Nick Huber. Me and Nick have been friends for a long time, and just watching him do what he does out there has been a lot of fun. He's crazy. But I didn't know that many people didn't like him until I clicked on something where I thought, and I think just like knowing Nick is so different than not knowing Nick, because everything he tweets about, I just kind of laugh. He's kind of quirky and funny, but man, people really just don't like that guy. So
The only
that's
thing
too
I
bad.
dislike about Nick is that anytime I tweet anything even remotely irritating, people go, "You think you're Nick? You're not Nick."
He's
And I'm
created
like,
the market.
God damn it, man! I can't.
Yeah,
He has
the way I
100%.
cornered the market on CPA threads, and if anyone does a CPA thread, I just get to comment at the bottom with the one I did 3 years ago. He did that with just being generally obnoxious on Twitter, which is
I know.
it's
Sometimes I'm
worked
not.
out.
Like, I got in trouble this weekend. I tweeted. I thought it was an interesting take on brands. I
Yeah,
was outside of Chick-fil-A, and there was some Walmart employees walking into Chick-fil-A carrying their iPhones like this. And I was like, man, look at that. Like Walmart employees going into Chick-fil-A carrying their iPhones, like such an interesting picture of like American consumer culture and like the interplay between, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I
yeah,
rudely, in hindsight, it was definitely rude. And I took it down within an hour, but I took a picture of them. I blocked their faces out. And I just said, what a picture of American consumer culture in one photo, yada, yada, and the interplay
yeah.
between consumer behavior. People did not like that, Mitchell. People did not like they were like, you're suggesting this and you're suggesting that, and this is suggestive of a number of, terrible things. And I was like, whoa, like I'm just not that deep, guys. I talk about pizza. I eat pizza like three nights a week. All right. Like I'm just not,
Man.
So I took it down, but all of the comments were like, leave this to Nick,
Just
Eric, you're
jump
better
off
than
a
this.
bridge.
Nick. I'm like, geez, Louise, man.
I think Michael Girdley said it maybe privately, but he said any content strategy that involves somebody like posting my address and threatening my family is not a content strategy for me. And I mean, that's brutal. I think things that would probably get me canceled, but I just don't type them. I have my wife review my tweets, honestly, and that's that's just it saved me a lot of grief. At one time, I sent something to the whole thread, and Nick said, "No, you can't post that," and so I just took his word for it. If I forget what it was, but it had to just be.
I was just say, is
it
that
had,
one of those where
it
like
had
if
to be
Nick
off
tells
the
you not to
rails.
post it, you're like, you've gone way over the line?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I need counseling or something.
Eric's been known to
Um,
send me
actually, probably
tweets from time to time for approval, and they're never
I
the ones
will.
that probably need
I
approval,
will.
right? So
I
yeah,
will. No,
but
they're the ones that do. And I had Nick sent me a DM once and he was like, "Hey, you've taken Jason, I don't know. I had this thing going on and he sent me a DM and then he was like, "You've taken this too far. Just heads up. I like your account, but like, this is starting to look bad." And I was like, "Oh, like, thank you for the perspective." Like that's, I took it into consideration. Whatever. And then I posted the number of it. I had like 90 million impressions or whatever. And I posted that. And then he sent me another DM and was like, "Keep going, keep going."
go
So,
take further. You know what?
probably my,
It just
yeah.
I don't. I mean, I really don't like the new world order of Twitter that much. I liked it the way it was because it served
Mhm.
me, and I could tweet anything I wanted, and people saw it, and
I
it
agree.
was good. And I don't like the whole engagement thing, but look, if you want your stuff to get seen, you have to farm for engagement.
It's hard for
I
me to
guess,
get
but,
past
it's a bummer.
having to craft a tweet that's unnecessarily incendiary. Maybe not even in a bad way, but
Yeah.
just like, the hot and cold takes. Like you got to go all in on something that needs more nuance in order, if you try and add nuance to a tweet, you get buried. Now we gotta live in a world where if you don't do it this one way, you're the stupidest person on earth to drive engagement.
Yeah, Twitter is no place for nuance.
Well,
I had
I
to
will
take
say-
up for Dave Ramsey. I
Yeah.
mean, geez,
Yeah.
bad.
I agree with you guys. I just want to clarify that Mundane Millionaires and S&B Law Group is pro Elon Musk. We believe he's doing a tremendous job. And if he's listening, we welcome retweets and the like. So just
that's
I
no
wanted to
Mundane
make sure that was
Millionaire,
on the
right?
record.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
a
Thank you,
billionaire right there. Thank
All
you.
right, Mitch. This has been fun, man. Anything you want to plug? You want to talk about Baldridge Financial? Anything you want to say before we conclude?
Follow me on Twitter at Baldridge CPA. Me and my friend Scott Hambrick have a podcast called Stupid Tax. You may want to listen to it on all podcast providers. Got a newsletter. Got Ari Koseg. Got better bookkeeping for founders and solopreneurs like you. And just at me, bro. DM me. But thank you guys for having me. This has been fun. And great to finally meet Eric. Great to catch up again,
You
Kevin.
too.
And I love what y'all do, man. Excited to
Likewise.
watch along.
Love it, Mitchell. Great to meet you as well. And
Yeah,
if you find
absolutely, man.
your way through Dallas, drop me a line.
I will. Yeah. We go to Dallas quite a bit, so let's do that.
Sounds great.
This was better.
right.
This was better than I even hoped. So exciting.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, thanks for making the time, man. This was fun.
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mundane Millionaires. If you enjoyed what you heard in this episode, make sure to follow Mundane Millionaires wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. See you next time.